We have so many success stories. I mean, we have, for instance, a girl that who was heavily involved in the gangs to the point, at one point, of having a gun held to her head, who is now in our sixth form and will be going off to university. Last year, in our year 11s, we only had 2 children that we didn't get into employment, education or training. And that's despite of the lives that some of those kids have had.
Yes.
And so, and I have an amazing team. I mean, the great thing I think about working in an area like Thanet in the schools in Thanet is that people work there because they want to. They work there because they absolutely care about the children that.
But you're not just a teacher, are you? Really, from what I'm hearing, I don't know how I would describe you, but when the image I have in my mind of a teacher is a fraction of what you do.
No, absolutely, and we own that. I mean, we wash children's clothes, we feed kids breakfast, we take kids into hospital when we need to. We fight with social services, the police, other things when we need to. And the police, I'm not criticising those services; they're as stretched as we are. But our view and my view is that education is a huge part of what we do, obviously. But actually, we have a responsibility to do the best for our kids. And so, I mean, for instance, We've just worked with an optician, so that there's an optician that's coming into our school to test the kids' eyesight, because it doesn't happen for them. My hope in the future is that we can get GPs and things, because many of our kids don't have GPs, and that we can get dentists and things in, and it's that kind of drive. It's actually will make these children's lives better.
And it sounded a little bit glib when I said you're a better man than me, but you by most available measures, you clearly are, because your reward is other people's happiness.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know you're not comfortable with the compliment, but tough, right? It's my show, my rules. That's the bottom line here. So you could probably earn more money doing something else. You could certainly have less stress doing something else, but something about the way you're made means that this is what gives you pleasure. This is what gives you fulfillment and satisfaction.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I don't deserve praise for it. Really, it is. I love what I do. I mean,
I get that.
Sometimes it hurts incredibly, and the problem we have. I mean, one of the things I have to do when I'm working with my safeguarding team is to reassure them that as a school we're doing everything we can and more. When the question I ask all the time to my staff and to myself is this good enough for my child? And the problem is that the answer is no, it's absolutely not.
But it's the best we can get for this child.
But there's nothing more we can do, and that's why. I mean, I just hope, and I know you asked not to be political, but I just hope that the political winds change.
Political.
I hope the political winds change, because to me it's utterly shameful, and then you add on to it the kind of vitriol that says that describes my parents as scribers and all this kind of nastiness that comes to the Daily Mail and Co.
It does, and I mean, what about the denial, the reality denial, rather than the negative portrayals? The people who claim that what you've just described isn't true. How I mean, I kind of have my own largely amused attitude to these people, but I also feel sorry for them in a genuine, charitable way. I don't know that I could do if I was doing what you do every day. How do you deal with the people who simply say that's not true, you don't wash their clothes? And if you do, I know the stereotypes about the parents, but it still displays a callousness to the children, even if you are blaming it on the parents, because it's not, as John reminded us, it's nothing to do with the babies. It's nothing to do with the children where and when they were born.
I think there's a mixture of things. I mean, one of the things that I've done over the last year is I've spoken about the work we do to help kids out of county lines and gangs and things. And you've got some really good people who just don't want to believe it. And one of the things that I do is
that's such a beautiful way of putting it. They're good people, but they don't want to believe it because it will haunt them.
Yeah. And I mean, interesting. We had Ofsted come in a couple of years back. They're due again, unfortunately. They came in, and one of the things that I did, and it was a bit of a risk really, is that I put them with some of our ex-gang children and children that are really struggling, and the inspector came back in tears, saying that actually what you're doing is saving lives. And again, you could tell that when he'd come into the school, and they came into the school saying, "Look, you're rubbish,"
because they're measuring you by the objective metrics, which means they're comparing your school to my school.
Yeah, and so they came in and said, "Look, we're going to be putting you in special measures." And actually, they came out saying that the work that you're doing here is outstanding. I mean, they couldn't give us outstanding because the criteria doesn't allow that.
But that's such a damning indictment of the criteria, isn't it? And it's the difference between getting a kid from an E to a D, as opposed to getting a kid to an A. In many ways, it's a much greater gift to society to get a kid from an E to a C than it is to get a kid from a B to an A, which parents like mine.
And did you know that government policy is that they won't invest in schools that they consider to be failing? So we have my school, and again, you just think about this: kids are living in homes that are cold.
Yeah.
And up until last year, the school had a 1960s boiler that broke down every year. So the school was cold, and the reason why the government wouldn't give us money to replace that boiler and fix it is because we were not a good school. The government policy is that if a school is struggling in difficulties, they won't give it money. Which to me, in a common sense way, seems insane. I mean, what they say is it's market forces. We support the good schools and the schools in
market forces. There it is again. Yeah. Incredible.
But I mean, the whole thing is that a market forces doesn't serve areas like that. So I mean, I've got friends who know people who came into the area as a GP. And they found that it was so depressing and difficult to work in Thanet as a GP, they left. So we have those GP shortages, we have dentist shortages, we have all of those things. We have the lack of the good food and all of those things.
Thanet as we
combined the area.
I hear you.
And it describes many places in the country, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, and again, the Thanet is almost a byword for the sort of political forces that see people encouraged to blame their problems on incomers when there often aren't any. But you know that better than I do. In the unlikely event that I can ever do anything to help you out, Matthew, please ask, won't you?
Thank you.